It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Glad you're hanging out with us on a Monday morning as we get closer and closer to the holidays. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 as Mike is very thirsty for the
hydration is key
for the viewers on ESPN2.
Hydration is key.
Goodness gracious.
Right? That was full
Felt
after.
like I just came off a series.
That was aggressive, wasn't it?
I feel like you just ran a wind sprint or something the way you were chugging that water.
Just finished the series in the snow. I was thirsty.
There you go. Well, you just scooped up some snow.
That's true, too.
We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And then you get guys like Ryan Clark. Joins us in studio giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Okay, there's been debate about this, which I was shocked at. But apparently some people do not like snow football. Yes or no, Ryan? Snow football.
Absolutely.
And you're
love
from
it.
Louisiana.
Absolutely love it. You know why? Because people can only run straight and they don't throw the ball well. So I absolutely, when Troy and I would be pulling up to the stadium, if it was snowing, we were the happiest people walking into Heinz Field. We dang near held hands and skipped down the tunnel because we were so excited about what the day would look like.
By the way, one of the greatest snow games I ever saw in attendance in person was at Heinz Field. It was Steelers-Chargers in 2000.
I remember.
The only 11-10 game in NFL history. And it should have been a different score because there was an interception. I think Troy Polamalu.
They were trying to lateral.
Yeah.
He knocks it down, scores.
And they didn't allow the score. The only 11-10 game in NFL history. Chappie and I were there for that one. That was crazy.
Snow games are great, except for wide receivers, running backs, probably O-line. I have two reasons now. One, everybody got down to my level, which was good.
Helps.
I mean, without question. And number two, I thought was the most important one. What's the one thing, if you have a bad play on Sunday, you know it's a bad play. What does everybody think about?
The film the next day.
It's exactly right. You never had, in that Buffalo game, they're not worrying about that.
You're
not getting yelled at. Plus, no coach is going to yell at you. What happened to your technique there? Coach, I was playing in a foot of snow. You're not getting yelled at. I mean, you are so off the hook of getting yelled at, and as a player,
That's
love
a good feeling.
that.
Hey, you already know when your play's coming up, when you're like two plays out, you're like,
I'm telling you, isn't it the
wonder
truth?
If they'll miss it.
As I said, I keep trying to relay this to people. If there's one play in the first quarter, 3 plays in the third quarter, you're like, oh, God. Or if it's in the fourth quarter, you're like, please don't get to it.
Right.
Go too long in the film session where you don't get to it.
And there's never enough plays to erase that one out of your mind. No matter what you do the whole day, that's the one you wait on.
And then you just pray they only show it over like 5 times and not 10 times.
And not slow it down with the coach's
Please move on. Please move on.
Oh, you getting the arrow and everything. You get the laser right here, guys.
It's horrible.
The only good thing, like for the really good players, at least on our team, they would never say their names. They'd be like, hey, guys, right here at safety, you can't do that. This is not what you can do.
They wouldn't say Ryan Clark, number 25.
Oh, they'd say me.
Yeah.
There's another guy I played with.
And let's understand, I had Buddy Ryan as a coach.
Yeah.
So he called you by number and then called you some other things as well.
He added some names to your name.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
As Ryan Clark is here with us. All right, there's a lot to get into, but let's start with one of your old teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, what they've been doing these last 3 weeks has been ridiculous. Is Chris Boswell now officially a member of the Killer Bees?
Oh, he has to be.
Right? I mean,
he's the most
4.
important one, actually, right now.
But here's the question. Look, they won the division. They got the huge showdown coming up this weekend with the New England Patriots in Pittsburgh. And we're assuming that if New England wins tonight on the Monday night game against the Dolphins, they'll have the same record, which means this will determine, in all likelihood, who has home field advantage throughout the AFC. Are you seeing enough out of Pittsburgh on both sides of the ball to believe that they can take down the New England Patriots?
Offensively, I think they're amazing. I think this is what we've been expecting for the last couple of years out of these guys. Defensively, I don't.
It's a problem. Right now.
If you go back to the Detroit Lions game, at that point they had given up 13 plays of 20-plus yards. The next 4 weeks, they give up 17. They're not tackling on the back end like they have been. And it was obvious last night, not having Shazier. I'm sure emotionally it's a toll on the team. But the dude can flat out play.
Yeah.
He's a sideline linebacker, a guy who can cover backs and tight ends out of the backfield. And you don't just replace people like that, much less athletes and players. And so Tom Brady has always been tough for us to stop. Even when I was there, we were number one defense. We might average 17 points a game defensively, and he'd score 40.
Right.
He always kind of understood where the spots in the zones were, and so they tried to change things up. But you can't go into a game against the New England Patriots giving up big yardage like they are on defense.
No,
I don't think you win that way.
You can't. They never gave up over 20 points this season till the last 3 games, over 20 in each game.
Right.
They gave up. They have a lot of sacks this year. They're second in the league with 41, so we know that's a key to playing New England is hitting Brady. Because
get him off his spot.
Brady is he's going to go down and live to fight another play. So they have to do that. But if a quarterback's able to throw in rhythm on the secondary, then you're not going to get to the quarterback in time. So I agree with Ryan. That's a legitimate worry for the Steelers, especially over the last 3 weeks.
Yes.
It's how you're trending toward the end of the season,
That's what
how
matters.
you're playing.
Well, listen, you mentioned Shazier, and obviously there's been some guarded optimism, some improvement over the last couple of weeks. There was this great emotional moment after the game where they FaceTimed Shazier in the hospital, and it was very cool. Let's take a listen and look at this.
I was there. You say,
oh, yay, babe.
All right, so that was the Steelers FaceTiming Shazier with him in the hospital. And first of all, it's just great to see Ryan. Great to see him. Great to see him with a smile on his face. And obviously that was a big lift to him. And Shazier was everywhere in that stadium last night. He was everywhere. It was an amazing thing to see.
Mm-hmm. So probably the last guy to be in that position in Pittsburgh is me.
Yeah.
The last guy, myself dealing with my actual mortality, but also my football mortality. And I know that team. I know those people. Coach Gary Guimont, who's a strength coach, called me right after they played Cleveland one night. Hey, man, what do you want? I was like, I just want some Boston Market, and drives that over. And every trainer coming to the hospital, the defense being in there every day. And so that team, that family, that band of brothers knows how to rally around a teammate, a friend, better than any organization in the world. And so just watching that, it made me teary-eyed because I know what he's feeling, what he's going through, and how much it means that they still care that much about him.
And for people that maybe aren't familiar with your story, this was after the Denver game you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
You carried the sickle cell trait.
Right. The high altitude, it actually sent me into sickle cell crisis. And so, I lost my spleen, my gallbladder, and the story goes. But I just remember being in that hospital, watching them play, but having them care so much about me that no matter what the score was, what the game was like, it was important to show that I was still a part of the team. And so to see that, it makes me emotional because it brings me back to those times. And I know kind of, what he's going through. And so for that team to be able to, win the game, but also dedicate the game to him in the way that they did, it was amazing. I think the hard part for both the team and Ryan is, as we watch, we understand obviously what he means to them as a friend, but as a player, this is a guy that's been huge to this team, and so it's really sad to have him in this position, facing not playing again, but also not getting the opportunity to see him on the field for us because he's such a great player.
Yeah, listen, and players are used to, in whatever sport, used to dealing with injuries in that sport. And in football, if you get hurt in knee, elbow, whatever, we know how long you're going to be out, and everybody deals with that. But when you deal with something like your situation or Ryan's situation, it's different, and it really goes to show what a family, team is, because you do spend as much time or more sometimes with your teammates
during the season for sure,
and then your family. That's exactly right. And a lot of times, because I was in that position on certainly a much worse scale than that, is who has to go in and fill in. Listen, backups are always ready to go, but somebody has to go in and fill in. When Jerome passed away, Jerome Brown, in the offseason, I was the guy. I was that rotating guy with me, him, and Mike Pitts. All of a sudden now, here I'm the starter filling in for a guy, forgetting again, it was my teammate, it was my friend. So it's what you're talking about in the locker room is your friends,
Absolutely.
not just teammates, and you have to go in and fill in for that. It's because it goes on because you're playing the next game. You got the next practice. You got to go in. Someone's got to play.
Football
doesn't stop.
Yeah, football doesn't stop. I remember my first play in my first practice in college, and high school was different. You know, somebody went down to high school, everything stopped, everybody sat around. A guy goes down in training camp, and Jerry DiNardo was the head coach at the time, and he goes, move it up 10.
Yeah, exactly. Just move around the injured players.
And everybody walked around him, and practice continued, and my mind was blown. Like, I just couldn't believe it. And that's the thing, you know, for the other 52 guys on his team, football has to go on, but it's no way to move on without thinking about someone you're so close to.
And now the Steelers can finally move on to that game that really Mike Tomlin's been talking about for 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Which is different for him.
I was very surprised.
It really is.
Why do you think he did that? Do you think he did that because he felt like the team needed to hear that?
Well, you know him well enough from watching him for years.
We'll own it. It's our mistake. We'll move on.
Exactly. So nothing he does isn't premeditated. It isn't well thought out. And I think that was, if he let that out, he did it on purpose.
Right.
He wanted that to be given to the team, given to the media, given to the world. And also, I think you get to a point, much like we see some of these great basketball players or some of these great coaches, where you just stop caring. Like, you stop caring about a template or how you feel people think things should be done, and you just kind of start to be yourself. I think he was just honest, because an honest man is looking forward to that. An honest man has marked it down on his calendar. We have talked about it for, I don't know, since they both got over those terrible starts where we were like, oh, my goodness, they might not be who we think they are.
And then how about, so moving on, that's a big game we're talking about. Then obviously another big game that we're talking about is you, and it's about where you are right now. You look at the Chiefs, who have lost 6 of their last 8, and the Chargers.
That's my team.
Who have won their last 4. So now they're meeting in Kansas City on Saturday night. Winners leading the division right now, and the Chiefs already won the first one, but they have the same record, so obviously if the Chargers win it here, they're leading that division. How do you see that one, and as far as, again, trending on how they're playing right now?
Well, obviously, I think the Chiefs got back to what the Chiefs need to do yesterday. They started running the ball with Kareem Hunt again. He gets 25 touches. He was 13 to 16 in the last 6 weeks. They had kind of gotten away from feeding him in the passing game, but when you watch the Chargers play, just you take away records, you take away what you thought in the beginning of the season when they couldn't make field goals to win games. They look like the scariest team in the AFC. When you see the way they rush off the edge, when you watch these corners make plays on the ball. And Phillip Rivers, who's always been, to me, one, the most competitive quarterback I've ever played against, and two, the most underrated.
The most competitive.
The most competitive. The most competitive in a way that you respect it, though. The trash talks, the dadgummits. You know what I'm saying?
Golly.
He's not cussing you out much.
Yeah, the son of a biscuit eaters. I mean, all these things he comes up with, but he's in your face and he's playing. And so now to watch Keenan Allen come back off of injury and be better than he ever was before, see them be able to run the ball a little bit with Melvin Gordon, that's a scary team to me. And if the Chiefs get off of what they did yesterday, if Andy Reid doesn't continue to do that, I think the Chargers go into Kansas City, which is a tough place to win, and pull this off.
Well, again, they're trying to become only the second team in the history.
Who's the other one, Trey?
That would be the Chargers of 1992.
How about it?
They started 0-4. They're going to do it in San Diego. They want to do it in L.A. as well. Then there's the other team in Pennsylvania. That game between the Rams and the Eagles yesterday just had the feelings of a heavyweight fight. Both teams unload. I mean, I thought for a lot of that game, you were seeing the Eagles use a lot of the plays that the Rams had been using, with the motion of the wide receivers going 3 different ways and throwing it back to the other side.
Yeah.
It was like they were stealing from their playbook. And then obviously they come back and get the win after being down in the fourth quarter, but they lose Carson Wentz potentially for the rest of the season. They're waiting to get an MRI on him today. They fear it's a torn ACL in that left knee. How does that change everything, in your opinion, of what can be accomplished by the Eagles?
Well, it changes it in this fact. Carson is very good at second chance plays, improving, making plays outside of the pocket. It's a reason why he's injured now, and we've seen those things. I don't think it changes necessarily the playbook, but it will change the play calling. When you have 3 running backs like they do, they usually kind of play off of each other. You let Carson make some throws, and then you get the running game going. I think the running game is going to have to lead this team now. But Nick Foles is a guy who started in this league. Nick Foles is a guy who in 2013 played extremely well. 27 touchdowns and 2 picks. He's not going to be that dude, but I think he can definitely have this team in competition to win games. The scary part is this. If you look at the Minnesota Vikings, you feel look pretty good. I mean, Nick Foles, Case Keenum, you're like, oh, it's like the same guy, just different teams. But when you get down to the Seattle Seahawks, when you get down to the Saints and the Falcons and the Carolina Panthers with all these proven quarterbacks, what will it look like then? Will you need those extra plays Carson Wentz can make? And that's going to be what gets them over the hump if Nick Foles is able to make those plays against those
I think
teams.
he has a lot of weapons to get the ball to. My issue is the lack of mobility as compared to Carson Wentz, who's been sacked 28 times, and the pass rush. Because remember, you're not dealing with Jason Peters. He's been gone. They went through 3. They used 3 left guards yesterday. So let's see where that line is and protection, because you have a guy, Nick Foles, who's more of a statue back there, where Carson is going to create something for you. So that, to me, is one of the big worries. So they're going to really rely even more if they can get it going on that running game to help the play action.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of 500 beans. Call or click today and find out if we could save you hundreds on your car insurance. And if Wentz is gone for the year, and again, we're waiting on the MRI, it certainly doesn't look good. The Eagles are expecting, I think, bad news. It goes to this list, guys, of players that are gone for the year in the NFL, whether it's J.J. Watt, Eric Berry, Deshaun Watson, Julian Edelman, Andrew Luck, Richard Sherman, now Ryan Shazier. I mean, it feels like, and that's just a partial list, it feels like this year, more than ever, we've had the name players, the star players go down in boatloads. Does it feel that way to you guys?
It does. It does for sure. I think it helps that we cover it so well now and we see so much. But I can't remember a year that this many marquee guys were out for the season, not just miss a game, not just miss a couple of weeks. And I think it's a testament, though, to what Golic and I were talking about earlier. Football is still being played. We're still tuned in. We continue to watch. And last night I was supposed to go on SVP, but I was bumped because the game took too long. And, they asked me, what was my biggest takeaway? And my biggest takeaway from this season and from yesterday is that backup quarterbacks are really important.
Yeah.
Right? If you're the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck doesn't play at all, that's important. If you're the Minnesota Vikings and Case Keenum has the year he has off the bench, that's important. And so you see all these different teams who are having to go to their backup quarterback, and whether or not this guy can play changes the complexion of your season, and we've seen that more this year than ever.
One of the biggest ones is Brett Hundley.
Absolutely.
Them getting that win for Green Bay over the winless Browns up by 14 in this one. Couldn't hold it, lose. Now we may get Aaron Rodgers back.
And I had just Lloyd Christmas the Browns against the Packers. I was like, guys.
You did.
I'm saying there's a chance.
Oh, you're telling. Oh, I see. Listen. I wanted that to be Ryan Clark with us on Golic and Wingo here. I wanted that to be the case, but I had a feeling they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way. And then I got worried because when Hundley, he didn't stretch the ball over the goal line. I thought, oh my, they may run out of time. But then he threw that perfect throw.
It was. It was.
You know what? You know what's been amazing to watch for me, and I would love to pay attention to it as it goes forward. Devontae Adams has been huge for Brett Hundley and the Green Bay Packers.
Absolutely.
We have barely seen Jordy Nelson.
No, that's exactly right.
As Aaron Rodgers comes back, does Jordy Nelson now become another factor? Now you have Devontae Evans, who has proven he could be a 1. Jordy Nelson, who we know has been a 1 in this league. Does that make them more formidable with Aaron Rodgers, or does it kind of go back to Jordy's Aaron's guy and we'll call plays for Devontae? Because if both of those guys get going, this team could be trouble.
Man, if you see Rodgers running on that field, how great is that going to be? And really quickly on the other side, there are some that don't think he should have gotten another chance. Either way, he did. Josh Gordon is a talent. If Josh Gordon can get his life in order, and if it is in order now, keep it in order. Yeah. That's obviously the most important thing. But man, there has never been denying his talent.
I've played against him, and this one he was younger, less muscular than he is now. But he is an impressive specimen. Mm-hmm. He's tall, he's big, he's strong, he's fast. He can catch the football, and so he's one of those guys and that you root for now. Now that he's gotten this chance, you root for him to do the right things, be on the right track. 1, for his life. Yeah. You want his life to go in the right direction. But 2, he makes the league better when he's playing, and also the Cleveland Browns a ton better. than they are without him.
Golic and Wingo presented by Amazon. Amazon's got millions of toys and games to choose from this holiday for kids of all ages. Check out Amazon today. As Ryan Clark wrapping up here with you. Okay, seismic games coming up this weekend, and we'll get into that as the week goes on. But as you look forward in the NFC with the injury to Wentz, the loss by the Rams, the loss by the Vikings, where do you see the power shift in the NFC, right? Because I think it's pretty clear in the AFC. Yeah. If the Chargers get in, they might be scary, but it's really the Steelers and the Patriots
exactly.
with a heavy lean toward New England because of history. But where do you see that? Where do you feel like when the dust is all settled, this might be the team in the NFC?
As an NFL analyst, you guys have been doing this much longer than me. Is it ever okay to say, I have no stinking idea?
No, absolutely.
No, I'll be honest. Week to week, I'll watch certain teams, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, they are unbelievable. This is going to be the team to beat. And then the next week, I'm like, oh, maybe not. When you look at this, and I've always tried to lean on the quarterbacks, and this is a year that you really can. I watched the Thursday night game, and Matt Ryan does all he can to lose the game.
Right.
And then Drew Brees loses it for the Saints. And so when you watch these teams, I still think Minnesota, if they can stay healthy, Xavier Rhodes got a little bit banged up yesterday. I still think Minnesota is the toughest team in this division because of the way they can play defense, but also because of the chemistry Case Keenum has created with that wide receiving core. Now more than ever, though, it seems that having home field is going to be important, especially with Philadelphia now having to go with Foles. If Minnesota can somehow get that top spot, if Philadelphia falters a little bit, I think Minnesota is the team that has the best chance to come out of the NFC.
And that's why that game was so important for the Rams, because they would have had the number one seed at that point. And they got to go up to Seattle now, and they're in a dogfight to avoid being a wild card.
Right. And who wants to go chase Russell Wilson?
Nobody.
That's the truth. And there's nothing wrong with saying you have no idea right now, because you can make a case for Philly, for New Orleans, for Carolina,
absolutely,
for Minnesota, for the Rams, for Seattle. I mean, they all have their pluses and minuses. So, I mean, everybody's guess is as good as ours right now.
This is going to be a really fun sprint to the finish.
Yeah,
there's no question about it. RC, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, guys.
NFL Live today. Get ready. He always does his Sunday best on NFL
You
Live.
already know it, brother. My favorite part of the day.
The best looking outfits. And please talk about the Cam
Shriner's hat?
Yeah.
Oh, you know it's on there.
Yeah.
You know it's on there, buddy.
Agrabah rocks.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
There were lots of great games, amazing comebacks, some injuries, obviously, and a lot of controversy around the NFL on Sunday, including the end of the Seahawks-Jacksonville game. But a lot of people were really concerned, Mike, about what happened to Texans quarterback Tom Savage in that game against the 49ers and how his injury was handled.
Yeah, I mean, with Tom Savage hitting the ground and then kind of rolled over and you saw his arms in the air, and when they showed the replay, it kind of honed in on him, and in slow motion you could see his hands shaking. The ref was right there. He did go off the field. He went under the blue tent in there, and then he went back out on the field. He was cleared in there and went back out on the field for another series, and then was reevaluated and taken into the locker room, and that was the end of his day. And there's a lot of people looking at that hit, looking at his reaction, saying, how in the hell can a guy who landed like that and looked like that end up back on the field? And we have the whole concussion protocol from the initial, when you think someone's hurt, to getting back onto the field, to where it goes from there. And there is no doubt there seemed to be a breakdown here. It's a matter of figuring out where you think the breakdown was.
Right. And by the way, our Kevin Seifert has posted on Twitter a huge article on everything that is sort of going place. Here's sort of how the policy works, and we'll break it down. In the beginning, it begins with the positioning of 4 independent and dedicated medical professionals. 2 certified athletic trainers sit in a booth above the field looking basically as spotters.
Right.
When
2
they
spotters.
see something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then a dedicated radio connection to the sidelines. Each team is also assigned an unaffiliated neurological consultant who works along with the team doctor. And unaffiliated is important because they don't want it to be someone related to the team. They want someone who's a neutral observer, for lack of a better term. And one of the questions that we had and seemed to that we had an issue with is, do they have the video that we're seeing? Because when you saw Tom's arms lock up like that, it's called like a fencing pose. Sometimes that's what it referred to.
A fencing response is
Yes.
called when you see like the fencers have their armor, because you talk about boxers or MMA guys when they get knocked out, their arms may be up like that, or sometimes one arm is up and one arm is not. In his case, they were both kind of up. So that's it. Fencing response is kind of the term that was used.
Okay, so then they see that, and he came off the field, and they had the initial test, and the initial test is in that little blue tent. Okay,
right. And it's called that. It's called they're given Maddox questions. It's a standard part of sports concussion test that, for example, could include asking a player to recite months in reverse order or to complete a word recall exercise. So that's what they're doing in that tent. But there's something else that can go on in that tent.
Right.
That you wonder if this is where the breakdown was.
Exactly. The policy then suggests that at best periodically checking in with that player again, because it says here many concussions can have a delayed onset. And that's sort of what happened with Tom Savage here. He passed those initial if the protocol was followed, he passed the initial test in the tent. That's what Bill O'Brien said after the game, the head coach, and then he went back in. But later, they found that he had some secondary issues, and that's when they took him into the locker room.
Right. So the thing where I said it may get a little dicey is because we asked the question earlier. We all saw it on TV as a replay, and we said, what can they see? What are they allowed to see? And it turns out in the booth, the spotters do have a video where they can see replays, but also on the sideline in that tent, they have the ability, or maybe not in the tent, but the policy also calls for video review of the hit, a place where the treatment of Savage might have broken down. And it focused on the neurological exam that includes a spine exam as well. But basically, they can look at it on the sideline. No coaches or anybody can look at any replay because they're not allowed to. But the doctor on the sideline can look at the hit and therefore see the reaction of the hit as well. Yeah. So they can see that with both the spotters and both the independent doctor on the field. And did you look at that again? This is where I'm not a doctor, and you get that fencing response, as they say. Does that make it more of a to we need to take more control of the situation and not do this Maddox questions, which they felt he passed them enough to go back onto the field.
Well, that's the thing, because if you see that Maddox, that fencing response, if you're a boxer, you're out. That's when they know you're out, and you know what happens? The fight's over.
Yeah,
the fight's over. And the fact that wasn't enough, I think, to go and do what is the sort of deeper test.
Yeah, when they go into the locker room, it's called the SCAT-5.
Right.
That's another standard concussion test they do. It's a little more involved, but that's if you have to go into the locker room. Then they go into that protocol.
So the question then becomes, if you see someone with that fencing protest, wouldn't you want to take the deeper dive under the SCAT-5 as opposed to just do the Maddox questions?
Well, I think that's going to be the question that comes up right now, is to the doctors, to the team doctor, and to the call for this is the team doctor. He can decide to put him back on the field, but the independent doctor can disagree on that, and then they're obviously going to have to have a conversation about it to whether he goes back on the field or not. So I think we're going to see, did the doctors look at the hit on the sideline? Right. Did they look at did the spotters up in the booth look at it? And if they did, call down and say, hey, this guy's reaction, was with the fencing response or whatever. Again, I don't know if that makes it more serious. It certainly looks bad. There's no doubt about it. So if you thought this broke down, if you thought he never should have been back on the field, where did this break down? And did it break down? You would have to think in the initial observation and the Maddox questions and whatever that initial testing was under the blue tent there to actually let him go back on the field again.
And the reason this is maybe a bigger issue, because it's not the first time we've sort of seen this happen. There was a Thursday night game between Seattle and Arizona where the referee rightly, or I think it was the referee in the game, thought Russell he got hit under the chin,
right?
And he was sort of, closing his eyes and sort of rubbing his jaw, and they said, you need to go. So they got him off the sidelines, and they set up the medical tent,
right?
And he went in for a second,
right?
Didn't even get through the Matic questions and came back out onto the field.
Yeah.
So now it's not just a one-time occurrence here, and I think that's the bigger concern people have going forward. Are we actually following this thing the way it's supposed to be set up?
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that is if there's any thought of a head trauma at all, do they immediately go into the locker room? See, players will hate that.
Of course they will.
I remember watching Jason Witten one time. They wanted to take him into the locker room, and they took his helmet, and he lost it.
He was livid.
Because some players, we are getting into the day and age where some players are going to be okay with it or even self-report it, but for the most part, you're going to get players that are going to fight it. That's why you take their helmet. So if you and I don't know if that's the next thing. Do you skip the sideline? Again, with every other injury, you see all injuries, you go into the blue tent.
Right.
But if it's deemed head trauma, do you immediately take them into the locker room? Players will complain and say, no, listen, I just got my bell rung for a second. I'm okay, and I want to be back for the next series. Because if you go in the locker room, you're going to miss some time. So that's what the players are going to be are not going to want to just automatically go into the locker room. But is that where we should go with head trauma? The more we're learning, and if someone gets slammed on their head and they have that response or they're woozy, they get up like, they're a punch-drunk boxer, do you just say, you know what, we're not even going to the tent. We're going right into the locker room. I don't know if we're going to end up there or not, but I'm sure it's going to be something talked about.
Well, look, the SCAT-5 test is a standard concussion assessment tool published by the International Concussion in Sport Group. In essence, it's a more comprehensive test. And if it is about player safety, that sounds like that would be the first way to go. Let's make sure we go through the most thorough test we can find. But you're right. Look, it's a mess. And what we saw happen Sunday in Houston just added to that mess. And it's got to be something that's got to be taken a little more seriously than I think not only some of the players. I mean, like Russell went out of that tent. He was out of that tent in 2 seconds.
Yeah, but see, I'll say it again. Don't rely on the players to make that decision.
The whole point of this is to take it out of the players'
We can sit there and say the players need to be smarter about it, and I get it. But you know what? There's a difference of a player who's a superstar who may do that to a player that's a backup fighting for a spot that says, I can't leave the field. I may never get back on.
Right.
Don't ask them to think rationally about it. A little Monday night action. The New England Patriots are playing the Miami Dolphins and doing so without both Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski, who's serving his game suspension. Tom Brady, without both of them on the field, his touchdown-to-interception ratio goes down a little bit.
It does.
With Tom Brady since 2010, with Edelman and Gronkowski on and off the field. With them on the field, 236 touchdowns, 47 interceptions.
Yeah.
And with them off the field, 21 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So a little more with those guys off the field.
Well, that certainly would be understandable because Gronk is a freak of nature.
Yes, he is.
He's a physical mismatch against almost everybody he plays. Again, Monday Night Football tonight, Patriots at Dolphins, 8:30 on ESPN. Spanish language broadcast available on ESPN2. It's also streaming on the app. You can watch it there. It just seems like we're one win away here from the Patriots for the showdown we've all been waiting for, Week 15. Patriots in Pittsburgh with home field advantage on the line. Can you make the case for the Dolphins upset?
I'm trying. Tom Brady is...
Besides geography.
How about this? Tom Brady is 7-8 career record in road games against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
With more losses in Miami than he has road losses against the Jets and Bills combined. So how about that?
Well, they've lost
Does that help?
They've lost two out of the last three. I mean, two out of the last three. They've lost two straight down there in 2014 and 2015, and then they came back with that big win last season down there when Michael Floyd was making contributions. So it just the way the Dolphins are.
Does this help?
Try.
The Dolphins are one of 6 teams that Brady has faced at least 5 times on the road: Jets, Bills, Steelers, Colts, Broncos, and they are the only one that Brady has a losing road record against. That help?
No.
All right.
I mean, are you buying it?
No, I'm trying. I do have, because of the money, the way I spent my $50,000 on DraftKings. And,
so it all goes down
tonight,
to DraftKings. All right.
I had to take the lowest defense, which was, I have Miami's defense
against
tonight.
The Patriots.
Yes, but I had to take them where my money was set up. And
bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how that pays off for you.
I don't think it's going to work out very well. I'm not sitting in a good position.
Well, look. If you go by anything of the last game, the Buffalo Bills defense got after the Patriots a little bit, and of course their offense couldn't do anything. The biggest turnaround for this Patriots team has been that defense. Through the first 6 games, people were marching up and down the field. I think since the first 6 weeks, they've given up the fewest offensive touchdowns. They've only given up 6. And this is a Dolphins team that's been shut out twice already this year.
Yeah, it's exactly.
With 2 different starting quarterbacks.
The bottom line is you want a chance in this one tonight, hit Brady.
Yeah.
You got to hit him. He's missed practice this week. He's been getting hit this year, and that's the way, you talk about cutting off the head of the snake. That would be one. You knock him around a little bit, get him off his mark. That's what you have to do. You got to get some hits on him. You don't, you're in for a long night.
Well, that's the thing. He can decide he wants to play as long as he wants. At 40, he's been remarkable. And with Wentz, if he is out for the year, he's probably looking at the MVP award right now one more time. But if he, at some point, the physical toll will match up. He's already been sacked way more this year than he was all of last season. He's got the the sore Achilles that's limited in practice for a couple of weeks, and he wears the flak jacket. The only chance, is for him to keep getting battered the way he's been battered, and that's really the only chance I think that anybody has.
Can I try one more?
Sure.
Okay, they're a double-digit favorite.
Great.
All right. Best winning percentage as a double-digit favorite starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era. John Hadl is 28-2. Peyton Manning 41-3, Tom Brady 51-4. However, New England's last loss as a double-digit favorite came in Week 17 in 2015 in Miami.
See, really?
So how about that?
It's geography. The only thing we can say about this game is geography.
You picking Miami to win?
No. Are you?
No.
By the way, do you know what the word succumb means?
When you succumb to something, yes, you kind of give into it. You succumb to yes.
You succumb to it, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Well, your son was on the show the first hour.
He's a smart one, too. He's a smart one.
Wasn't he the academic All-American?
Academic All-American.
And then this is what he said.
Even he eventually succumbed to this.
So it's succumbed.
Yes,
it's not succumbed.
You can't succumb
unless
to anything.
the Golic dictionary.
Well, he did say you guys have a different dictionary, which I was not aware of.
We do have our own kind of verbiage because we have different months for different authors, and we do book reports and things like that.
Can you bring that dictionary in one of these days? I'd like to just go through the pages.
We're putting the finishing touches on it right now, and succumb is a word in there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, okay. When you finally succumb to bringing that in, I would be very happy to read that, and we'd all learn something.
Yeah, we all
want to learn something.
He just needs to let me misspeak.
Yeah. By the way, Golic's definition of succumb was, when you succumb. That you sort of use the word in the definition.
Yeah, when you succumb to something.
You can't use the word to define the word. It has to be a different word.
Who says?
Everybody. You can't say, hey, what does what mean? Well, it's when you say what. No, you have to use the word when you say something, you give in to something.
I succumb to your train of thought.
There you go. Victory! Victory, finally, in the last 30 seconds of this show. Hey, I'm going to succumb to the idea that we're going to have to do this again tomorrow.
Yes, we are.
Which is really going to be a problem. We'll have the Monday night game. Hey, it'll be the huge geographical upset.
Oh, no.
It won't. But we got Tim Hasselbeck will be here.
Okay.
Louis Riddick will be here.
Oh, I like that.
And we'll see what happens. And, of course, we'll probably have some baseball and a big new rule in golf that we'll talk about.
Oh, all right.
Sanity has finally come to the sport. That's us, Golic and Wingo. We're succumbing to the clock.
Golf talk.